is it really our children that need all the accommodations, or is it time to fix the education system?
Right.
Because if we are looking at a classroom that has 16 children, all with accommodations, all with IEPs, well, hello, Mr. Administrator. That means that our way of teaching is broke.
20 years ago, when I started in this field, the number of BCBAs was significantly less than it is today. And the world of the registered behavior tech has totally changed because I didn't even have RBTs to my disposal when I started.
The parents were the
yeah,
BTs.
The parents
you didn't have that.
I had to work with the parents to do the work.
Hi, friends and family, and welcome back to Pam and the Purple Couch podcast. So, families, today I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off based on a reel I watched. I know, another social media snippet that got me, and why we're going to talk about it on the couch. It was a teacher that has about 22 students in her classroom, and she was stating that this year 16 of the 22 all have individual education plans, IEPs. And so she was complaining online about how she has to do accommodations for 16 students. And not everybody needs accommodations. Not everyone needs an IEP. So today on the couch, we're going to talk about that. Do all kids need labels? Are we over-labeling our children? Or are we just taking and becoming lazy and stating that it's not a can't do, it's won't do, and therefore you have to meet the kid in the middle? Let's find out today on the couch. Oh, I know, Manny. I know. I've got this in when I'm like, oh, man, I've got to start lifting some weights. My back is going to have so many social media scars on this one. But there is I don't even want to give the woman credit because I've got a mixed feeling on this. Mm-hmm. Is that, do I think that putting a label on a child has gotten overused? Possibly. I say this, and again, I say this in love, and like Loki would say, I am not speaking to every teacher. Mm-hmm. I'm not speaking to every parent, but I am going to speak to about 60-40 split is what I would feel comfortable saying. And, that's the auditor brain and me overanalyzing here. But if you have got 16 IEPs, then damn straight you're going to do 16 accommodations in that classroom. That is a federal bonding contract, period. When we stop listening to the contract that is established for that student, then we become very easily that slippery slope, like what we talk about with ethical and whether or not it's ethics, and when you put that one toe in the water, how quickly you fall back. Listening to that reel the other night pissed me off so bad because I started thinking about, do you know how hard it is to get an IEP?
Right.
So if you have 16 students in your classroom, that's not a parent problem. That's a, hey, administrator. Yep. You have got 16 students, all with different IEPs, all with different accommodations in the class. I need support.
Right.
But instead of going to the administration, instead of going to the system, you're turning it back around on the parents.
Right. And not only the difficulty of getting an IEP, the difficulty of getting the label, getting the diagnosis.
Correct.
And a lot of people, they lose sight of that those families have been trying to work with their child, trying to manage whatever the challenge is, whatever led to that point where they went to a doctor, where they went to a psychologist, waited for that appointment, waited for the appointment after the first appointment to finally get some answers. And that's what really a diagnosis is all about. And I think people lose sight of, why is the label even a thing? Why are we labeling in the first place?
Yeah, because for me, that alpha is coming in like this, and I'm like, okay, teacher, so do you have a bachelor's degree in education, or do you have a bachelor's degree in hotel management? What is your bachelor's in for you to be teaching in the classroom? And what training do you have that supersedes the diagnoses and the IEP that a team put together for that child?
And I think your point was spot on. I mean, so the teacher going on a tirade on social media, okay, that's a teacher in crisis.
Yes.
Right? So if we peel the layers and we say, okay, hey, can we even relate to some level? Sure, that's a teacher in crisis, just like it would be a parent in crisis. And she may not have said all the appropriate things and maybe not vented the right way. She's pointing the finger in the wrong place.
Yes.
It's a system failure, right? So if she would have done that social media video a different way and said, my administration is not helping me, or the
falling
school
on deaf
board,
ears. I
right,
have 16 children, all with accommodations, and I need support in the classroom, and there is no support.
it'd be a totally different video, right?
Correct.
And so I think that we see that with parents, right, who struggle with a child with any kind of diagnosis. Or for me, I think of the parents that have multiple kids with different diagnoses.
Absolutely.
And they have crisis all the time. They struggle all the time. And they, you know, maybe they're pointing the blame in the wrong place, but their spirit's the right spirit, you know?
Well, let's look at this on the other hand now, because I want to play devil's advocate here. As much as being an administrator, being a teacher, and a clinician, I look at this in one way.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because we are only dealing with alphabet soup children, children that have labels, children that have diagnoses. You know, we're in an 80 to 20. If we're in our high school, we're at more of a 90 to 10% ratio of neurodivergent versus neurotypical in elementary. Right. And early intervention is 100% all alphabet soup.
Yeah.
Okay. And so teachers, I do hear you. I hear the struggle. You know, please understand, I am advocating for you as well, because as a teacher at heart, I can't stand the administrative side. You know that. I am. You'll find me on the floor with the kids more than I want to be back doing QuickBooks. But there is also and I'm speaking up for my teachers now, there is also a shift that parents have stopped being parents. Now, yeah. I want to separate these because I think what's happening, again, in the world of social media, this is all being muddled together. If you have a child that has an individual education plan, then there are steps that have gone into getting those accommodations for that student that not just one person has written. Mom and dad didn't write that IEP. Mom and dad approved the IEP.
Right.
So let's take a moment to pause on that, okay? Teachers worldwide. For those of you all with her, 15,000 likes that, not every kid needs a label, not every kid needs an accommodation. Okay, maybe they don't. But in the situation you're in, those 16 students didn't write those IEPs. The school wrote the IEP with approval from the school board signed off by the parent. So let's get that clear.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one issue. But the other issue in hand that we're seeing all over, which would have been in the comments, are parents need to start being parents and not expecting the teacher to be the parent and the teacher. And I'm going to call bullshit on that one too.
Mm-hmm.
A teacher's role needs to change in the aspect of how we view a teacher. We talked about this when we were at the conference. It is not just the role of being a teacher. You are sometimes the mom and dad to that student and the only person that actually cares for the student.
Mm-hmm.
And if you didn't get into the role of being an educator because of your love and compassion for the student, then you're in the wrong field.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a problem we have. We talked about that off the camera with so many times we have teachers that are still in for the summers off.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Then you're not in it for the right reason. And if you're not in it for the right reason, no matter what student population you have, you're going to find something.
Yeah, and something that occurs to me too, like my sister's been a teacher now going on close to 30 years, elementary school, middle school, and I've been thinking about, her and I have had conversations over the years, and in the field of ABA, there's something that I've always prided our, is that the right, prided? I've always been proud, that's what I want to say. I've always been proud of one element of our field that we got right, which is scope of competency. So a behavior analyst, just like any clinician, has to make sure that the person that they are serving, the client that they are providing services to, the clinician has the scope of competence to be able to provide those services. I think the same is true for a teacher. So if a teacher has a group of students and one of those students is a neurodivergent student, that teacher has to be able to say, I have no degree of competency on how to educate that student. The student is my student. they have an IEP, I read it, I understand it, I don't know how to do it.
Absolutely.
They have to be able to raise the flag and say, I don't have the scope of competency to educate this child.
So then we go back to the administration
And
again,
that's right.
because it is
Exactly.
not providing the teacher the support.
And I think that's where the system buckles, because in the world of ABA, it's easy, right? Clinicians have it kind of easy. I don't have the scope of competency. Parents, I'm sorry, I can't help your child. I don't have that scope of competency. Here are some referrals, right? So clinicians have it kind of easier than the educator, because in the education side, especially public schools, I think, they are assigned the students. And
Yes.
at least this is from what I've learned, they're assigned the students, and then they have red tape after red tape after red tape to even try to help.
Again, going back to the educator.
It's the system.
You know, I sit here and I think about when we were talking in our parent training, it was either last month or the month before, and it was a parent asking about, okay, so my son had an IEP in the school system and stated he needed a one-to-one, and we broke it down. And breaking all of it down, most IEPs are not written properly. If you have a child that needs to be with a one-to-one but is in a gen ed setting, red flag number 1, get back to the table. There should never be a child in a gen ed setting that is a required one-to-one all day long.
Yeah, it doesn't.
That makes no sense. That just means you have a teacher that's overstaffed inside that classroom. So she probably has 30 kids. She can't manage the classroom, and therefore, instead of the school doing what they're federally bound under civil rights to do, have told the parent to go supplement.
Or you have the school, the principal, vice principals, not advocating that the school needs a special ed program.
Correct.
And even in our county alone, there are several schools without a special ed class. So where does the parents and the teachers, point to?
Well, and what's funny is because doing advocacy, what's disappointing to the 5,000th percentile is the fact that if you get an attorney involved, real quick, that child's moved to a special education program.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
But we have allowed, by not advocating as educators to the system, to the administrating, that this is wrong, this is broke, because we're afraid of retaliation.
And for that teacher that has 16 kids with IEPs, you mentioned it the other day when you shared that reel. Where's that teacher's aide?
Correct.
Or where is the support for the teacher if there is no other options? Let's think about that teacher in the Midwest, that the family and the teacher, they're kind of stuck because there's no school for miles. So where's the support in that school?
Absolutely. All right, families, we'll be right back after this special message. At Bridge to Tomorrow Foundation, we are there filling the gaps that federal and state funding doesn't do for all of our neurodivergent families. There's educational, therapy, and support services that are available to our families, but most of them can't afford those services. We need your help today in helping us fund the future for those children. We need a gap, a bridge to get them to where they need to go. So today, help us help them be our future. And now, back to the Purple Couch Podcast. Now, this goes hand in hand because now that teacher, just like we were talking about, I see a teacher in crisis. The problem that I had with the social media reel is not the teacher in crisis, it's the format to where she went to do the complaint, which then triggered all the parents.
Yeah, which is a generational problem in and of itself. But going back to labels. So, are we over-labeling as a society, as a world, as a globe? I don't know if that's the right question.
I don't either.
Yeah, I think that's not.
Well, let's think about this. If we have teachers that are 22-to-1 classroom ratios, okay, and that's on the low end. I thought 20 kids, but I've been corrected by so many educators when they're like, I have 32 kids in my classroom this year. I have 24 kids in my classroom. So let's take, again, the adjuster and auditor in me.
Right.
So 20-to-1.
Right.
All right. Now let's look at our national statistics in the United States. 1 in 31 children have ASD, autism spectrum disorder. That doesn't include all the plethora of ABC. That is a statistic only on autism spectrum disorder.
Right.
So if we're at 1 in 31 children, and we're at 1 in 20 in the ratio in the classroom, Yes, you're going to have more kids nowadays because the rate of diagnosis on these children has increased.
Right.
You know, we talk about when 𝘀𝘊𝘂 got diagnosed, it was 1 in 185.
Right.
That was 18 years ago.
Right.
We're at 1 in 31 right now. So is it that it's our children, and I'm going to throw it at you. You ready? Here comes my lasso. Is it really our children that need all the accommodations, or is it time to fix the education system?
Right.
Because if we are looking at a classroom that has 16 children, all with accommodations, all with IEPs, well, hello, Mr. Administrator. That means that our way of teaching is broke.
Well, and not just the education side, I can throw it into the ABA side too. So in 20 years ago, when I started in this field, the number of BCBAs was significantly less than it is today. And the world of the registered behavior tech has totally changed because I didn't even have RBTs to my disposal when I started.
The parents were the
Yeah,
BTs.
the parents were
you
the,
didn't
right,
have that.
I had to work with the parents to do the work. So, so now we've done we went to a conference, was it last year, the year before, where they talked about the number of BCBAs and RBTs that are out there versus the demand. And we're
Correct.
nowhere near meeting demand. So even on the clinical side, we haven't gotten to that point where we're meeting the need, right? And it's a system failure, right? So one of the things that I was reflecting on when we were preparing for this was, would we be saying the same thing if we were talking about cancer?
No one would even question it.
No, of course. Why?
I've got 22 kids and every single one of them is dying. I mean, I'm not trying to be that dramatic.
But would you say that? No.
You wouldn't go to the social media and go, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do. All of my kids are on medication. All of my kids are in chemo. No, we don't hear that. But because we are asking our teachers to make modifications instead of a blanket one size fits all, now it is the parent and it's the student's fault.
And we think about, so I use cancer as an example because as I was, thinking about this, when cancer started to get earlier diagnosed or earlier signs of cancer, the detection of it was sooner, faster, younger. They started having people get tested younger for different things. What did they do? The world at large started creating cancer treatment centers, early detection warning signs. They started educating the world about this, which we're doing in the world of autism and ADD, ADHD, but at a much slower pace.
I want to give you a hug. Did you not see my body language go, oh my gosh, I can't believe you brought that up. So if you go back 13 years ago, 14 years ago, I did an interview when I was building what I foresaw Puzzle Box to be. And I think it was when I was getting my investors and they were asking, oh, what do you see as the change? Why is this going to be different than any other private school? And I used Cancer Centers of America as my example.
Mm-hmm.
So Cancer Centers of America, just like you said, was a one-stop shop. They put radiologists, right. they put oncologists, they put dietary, dietitians that were in there, everything so that it was in one building. So that if you got a diagnosis, you came to this one building, you weren't running all over the county, you weren't running to different cities. It was compassionate care based on your diagnosis in order to support and treat that patient. So when people ask me, well, what was your goal with Puzzle Box? And you've got Kaleidoscope and what? And I was like, because I wanted parents to be parents again.
Right.
I wanted parents to be able to be the confidence builder, the one that loved the child, that didn't have to come home and reteach all of the lessons and be the teacher, then handle the social emotional issues and be the therapist. And then, oh, by the way, now we got to run and we've got to go to ABA this day and we got to go to speech this day and we got to go to OT this day. Oh my goodness, where's extracurricular activities?
Right.
You don't have any time. You're already not getting back to the house until 6 or 7 o'clock. Then if you're in a public school, you've got all this homework to do.
Yeah.
Where is family environment happening?
Right.
So my goal was to offer a one-stop shop where parents could be parents and we took care of everything else. And so when I'm hearing I got 16 kids out of 22 that all have accommodations. And then we're looking at the ratios of 1 in 31 just ASD. And then we have to add into it ADHD, ODD, OCD, ADD, blah, 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 blah. And this is where people are going, oh, we're just labeling everyone. No, we're not just labeling everyone. Our kids are fighting the fight right now because they are being their food is polluted. Their environment's polluted. I mean, we've taught them that stress is normal.
Right.
So no, we got to break the cycle.
Right.
We have got to change the way that we are educating the whole mass.
Yeah.
And if we do that, and if we're individualizing teaching to our students, you know what it means? And nobody wants to hear it. It's why the system and the administrators don't want to hear it. Lower the classroom ratios. Allow teachers to do what they're passionate about. And we won't have burnout the way it is. And you won't have teachers going to social media.
Right. Increase the training of special education. Increase the understanding and knowledge and expertise at the teacher level. You know,
what is so bad with having, you know, we do professional development. Our clinicians have to have continuing education hours. Right. Why are we not requiring, with these type of ratios, special education to be a requirement for teachers nowadays?
Right, it should be a requirement. Neurodiversity should be a requirement. And even to the extent that I think, you know, high school has it right. I'm gonna say something. Okay, so high school educators, that system has it right. You don't have a teacher teaching all subjects in high school. You have a math teacher, an English teacher, a writing teacher, a music teacher, a science teacher. You have a specialist teaching that course, right? And then add in the special education bit. You have a high school counselor or a high school teacher that helps those students. You don't have one teacher for all. So elementary school, elementary school has it wrong.
Absolutely.
It's to force a teacher to teach 7 subjects is ridiculous.
Yes.
So I always found that to be kind of a frustrating.
You know, it's funny you're sharing that on the couch with me. So Manny and I travel the world together, helping educate and inspire teachers and educators and caregivers. But this is the first time that you've shared that. And it's funny. Why do you think at Puzzle Box we change classes in kindergarten?
Yeah.
Because you've got to keep that kid inspired.
Right.
Not just are we changing the environment, but what if they don't mesh with one teacher? Doesn't mean that they're a bad student. It just means that there may be a personality conflict between the energy of that teacher and your student, which doesn't make your student wrong.
You know, one of the things that I, you know, as a parent with a couple of kids that have their own alphabet soup, you know, one of the things that I always reflect on is, so why do we label? Why do we have labels? Well, it helps with early detection of things. It's an opportunity for us to learn how to help the individual with their life, whether it's cancer or it's autism or it's depression or it's obesity, whatever the label is. A clinical diagnosis helps us to understand, one, how do we help the individual with their journey in life?
Right.
Is there funding that can be supporting that person's life? You know, that teacher wouldn't say that if she had 16 children in wheelchairs.
Correct.
Right? So you got to think like there's a purpose for these labels, and how do we utilize that understanding, that knowledge of the purpose to support that person's life? And I don't want people to lose sight of that.
So as we wrap up, my devil's advocate to your question or your statement there was, if we truly, and I would love this, and I'm sending this energy out there, that we can be in an environment where we don't need labels because every child is looked at as an individual. But if we do that, there comes a price tag to do that. Everything always comes back down to the cost. You know, as we have been talking to people in other countries that don't have the availability of public school for people that are not native of the country, you know, just yesterday I was talking with Missy down at Palm Bay, and I was telling her about, you know, in Dubai, that it would be where tuition would be, you know, $15,000 to $18,000 goes to $40,000 to $60,000, because there is no care for ABA through insurance. And that's what labels do in the United States. A label is an opening to resources for your specific diagnoses or label in order to get treatment or care.
Right.
If you want to get rid of the label, then make treatment and care available to all students. And that's how I'm going to end this episode, is that if you want to get rid of the labels, if you want to take labels off of our students, then we've got to be able to offer individualized care and the availability of resources to them all. So where will that price tag come from? All right, administrators and system and government officials, do you hear my voice? We need funding for our kids to change the system so that you don't have teachers in crisis and you have parents that feel supportive, and that makes our future generation a better outcome. So guys, until next time, from our couch to yours, see you soon.